Turning now to Abdulla Banndar Al-Etaibi, who joins us from the Qatari capital, Doha. You're an assistant professor in international affairs at Qatar University. Professor Al-Etaibi, how do you see the role of Qatar as a mediator here? How can they facilitate between Iran, who, by the way, geographically is their neighbor, and between the United States, whose military base they host?
Well, there are a lot of complexities here when it comes to the mediation efforts that Qatar and Pakistan are trying to conduct in order to find to reach a final agreement between the U.S. and Iran. It's one of the, maybe this is the second time for Qatar to be involved in a mediation while being part of the conflict that has its basically its interest being hurt so bad. Last year with Iran following the 12-day war, and now again after this war, this is the same situation. This is number one. Also, another problem for the mediators, I think it's the complexity of many stakeholders within the conflict itself. We talk about Hezbollah, we talk about Israel, we talk about other regional countries that are actually had a lot of bad influence, and due to the Iranian attacks, and also due to the closure of the Strait of Hormuz. Therefore, I think it's a big, difficult step for the mediators, especially on day one today, when we witnessed the Iranian delegations refusing to enter the room where the media was there. So it's not about only negotiating a deal, it's about negotiating how they look for the internal audience and also for the world. And this is, I think, the biggest thing for mediators to settle down at the beginning in order to have kind of smooth negotiations for the next 60 days.
Professor Al-Etaibi, is Qatar only playing a mediating role here, or is Qatar to some extent also a negotiating party? Hear me out. The Memorandum of Understanding agreed by the US and Iran, there are several key provisions in there that require discussions with Gulf countries. And of course, Qatar is one of the leading Gulf countries. I'll give you an example, the Strait of Hormuz. One of the articles in the Memorandum of Understanding says that after a 60-day period, the administration of the Strait of Hormuz must be decided by agreement, not just between Iran and Oman, but also with Gulf countries. That's just one example of Gulf involvement in the future of the region. So isn't Qatar also to some extent negotiating?
Well, I think to some extent, because at the end of the day, Qatar has its own interests that are being hurt so bad by this war. Therefore, I think it's very important to have discussions on a lot of issues, not only the nuclear issue. Therefore, I think the Ministry of Foreign Affairs statements today of Qatar mentioned that creating teams, and this is important to have technical, specialized or experts teams and follow-up teams as well. These teams will be very important for the nuclear issue, as it is the main issue and main concern for the United States, but also to other issues. We talk about the Strait of Hormuz as one of the major issues for the regional countries. Also, the issue of the regional security and all other issues are very important. Therefore, I think Qatar's role has been a facilitator for days to help the Pakistani mediator. Now Qatar is stepping up its role by being one of the mediators with Pakistan, and moving forward, I think it will be more discussions will be held between Iran and the regional countries, and I think Qatar will be one of the countries leading these discussions, and this is quite important for Qatar, as it is not only part of the negotiations, but it's also part of the regional countries, and this has to do with the regional dynamics. This is not a negotiations related to the nuclear issue. It is bigger than that. And the closure of the Strait of Hormuz yesterday just reflects that. Iran is saying Hormuz for Lebanon. Therefore, it's about the regional dynamics. It's not only about the nuclear issue. Therefore, I think the region needs to be part of this, and also the main conflicting parties, the US and Iran. And just if we look at the dynamics at the moment, we're seeing a ministerial meeting in Cairo with Egypt, Pakistan, Saudis, and Pakistanis. Tomorrow we're having in Jordan, Amman, there is also a meeting between among the foreign ministers of the Arab states. Therefore, I think there are a lot of coordination, and countries know that it's not only about the US and Iran. It has to be on a lot of other things, since the whole region has been influenced by the conflict.
Yeah, all the talks that are going on right now are affecting, as you point out, not just the bilateral relationship between the U.S. and Iran, but indeed the future of the entire region. Professor Abdulla Banndar Al-Etaibi joining us this hour from Doha. Always grateful for your perspective. Thank you very much.